Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of the Blacklist Season 10, Episode 4, the 200th episode titled The Hyena. That's my hyena. That's not creepy. That's not creepy at all.
No.
Don't, don't stop watching. I promise I won't do it again. Okay,
I promise you, I won't do it at all.
well, there's no time machine. There's no going back and undoing what has already been done. We are going to talk about this episode, the highs, the lows, this big milestone, the ending, what it means. I think there's some exciting things to get into here.
Yeah, I've got a pretty big theory on what's going on with the end of this episode. Big plan going on with Reddington when it comes to Vesco.
Okay, well, before we get into anything more here, just share the video around. If you're on social media, spread the word wherever it is you talk about the Blacklist. We want to get a really good discussion going here because we're not that far away from the end of the show. I recognize that, this is probably going to be split into parts or something like that. I don't think the show is going to end this summer, but you know what? Let's get the party started now. This is number 200, everyone. That's like one of those party streamers.
Oh, also follow us over on Instagram. There's no fire segue from that.
No, there's really not.
Just follow us over on Instagram, Matt and Jess TV.
Here's the thing about this episode is that I think it's very enjoyable. Like, I think there's a lot of fun stuff that happened in here. Who doesn't love a good heist? Who doesn't love a lot of Reddington? Spader was in a lot of this episode, so I think everybody who's understandably upset about the start of the season, not having enough James, I know. There's a lot of James in this episode, but does a very good episode mean a very good 200th episode? It's just sort of, I wanted something more. I wanted some cameos. I wanted some people from the past coming back in a more sizable way than Robert Vesco, who's been in I have 10 fingers. He has not been in 10 episodes. It's just like he's not notable enough to me.
I loved this episode. I'm all in on any plots that are full on heist, revenge. I love really good treasure hunts. This was so good. And there was so much James, so much Reddington, and the back and forth with him and Vesco. And I just think by the time we got to that sort of end reveal where we saw, Robert walking through that parking lot and one of WUJING's guys come up and be like, hey, by the way, I've got some information about your buddy boy Reddington there.
Yeah.
Here's a card with a number. WUJING will like to talk to you whenever you're ready. I was just like, oh my goodness, what a beautiful long play. And I might be wrong about this, but everybody
okay.
Put on your tinfoil hats and bear with me while I unfold all this. Okay. Last episode, we saw Reddington get Vesco out of jail. He knows about WUJING having the list. Mm-hmm. He knows that WUJING is going to go after everybody that's on the list. Vesco's on the list. Mm-hmm. And because Vesco is someone that he does have a pretty good relationship with, he's spent last episode and this episode kind of rebuilding things after he let Dembe take him and get him arrested and all that. That happened last season. I saw there was a comment about that of when did that happen? It happened last season. Yeah. But Reddington was speaking to Vesco in this where he's kind of I don't really have a lot of people that, are around me that I can really sort of trust. And Vesco's like, what are you doing? You're fattening me up for something. What is it? And Reddington's like, oh, it's the heist. It's not the heist. That wasn't the thing he's fattening him up for. The thing he was fattening him up for was the connection so that they could build this great connection going through talking about old times and the cigars and when they went here and they did this and just all this nostalgia that was going to overflow all over Robert Vesco. Then at the end of it, Reddington's to be like, yeah, here's your payout and you're a free man sort of thing. He doesn't know that Reddington went to Harold and was like, I'm going to need you to leave him alone because I'm actually going to probably need him down the road. And then I was like, Okay, so then we see this scene where Robert is being, approached by one of WUJING's guys, given this number. What I think he's doing, Reddington, it's already been set up a lot this season that he's like taking big gambles. He's gonna put down the cards all in, hope for the best. He's taking a lot of really big swings and he's betting on himself.
Yeah.
So I think he thinks he's done enough work with Robert to be like, hey, man, we have all this history together. We just did this heist together. You got paid out exactly what you wanted to be. Now you're out of jail. You're on your own. Here's all these things that I've done for you because we're buds. Mm-hmm. So when WUJING comes up, his man comes up and was like, hey, here's this number. Robert's probably going to call. And guess what he's going to get? Information. He's going to get all kinds of information. WUJING is going to lay it all out on the table and be like A, B, C, D, E. And then Robert's going to have to make a choice. What is he going to do? Is he going to then go with WUJING, who he doesn't know? And is he going to be mad enough about the FBI thing that he's going to be like, okay, I'm going to betray Reddington? Or is he going to remember everything he just did with Reddington and then call Reddington? It's option B. That's where I think they're going with this. Thanks for listening, guys.
It's
my cool, Reddington TED Talk.
It's a fun TED Talk. It's a cool theory. It's not something I actively thought about when I was watching it, because I was sort of thinking, yeah, I think Reddington wants Vesco for something when it comes to WUJING. Like, I didn't necessarily think it was just about the heist, but I didn't necessarily think that, he thought that WUJING was going to come to him. But of course, it makes sense that WUJING is going to come to Vesco and that all this situation, like all of that, I understand. And this is where like my own internal struggle kind of comes in, because like, I know, Hairline, me and Reddington might be a little bit similar, but we're not the same person. And for me, I'm not a gambler. Like, I'm not somebody who is going to go in there and, put my cards on the table, go all in, like any of this sort of stuff. Like, I would just tell Vesco ahead of time, hey, listen, this is what's going on. I want you to have all the information, but it might just be like you already sort of lined up that, this is something that Reddington is willing to take a chance on based on his personal information, his history. Maybe it's better and more believable if Vesco doesn't know anything if WUJING approaches him. It's just, for me, I would, for better or worse, for me, I would tell him and hope that I can convince him with like my own abilities. But Reddington, big surprise, 10 seasons in, Reddington is not me. He's going to do things differently.
Reddington doesn't trust anybody right now. Marvin just, ran him over last season. Like, nothing great has been happening. He's been betrayed so many times. Yeah. I mean, Dembe gave the letter to Liz. He felt that was a betrayal. Kaplan betrayed him. Everybody's betraying him. Liz betrayed him. Yeah. He just doesn't really feel like he can trust anybody. But at the same time, I think that he feels confident he put enough work into Vesco that Vesco will still side with him. And I think that that's more valuable than going to Vesco and being like, I need a favor. Because then at that point, Vesco's kind of like, oh, here we go. Even at the beginning of this episode, what is it you want from me? If Reddington was like, I need a favor, this is what I need, that he'd be a little more on the fence to be like, I don't know. And it also then kind of requires Reddington to be honest about working with the task force and being like, by the way, I've been doing this whole time. Don't be mad, but also help me. It's just like, I can't see him doing that.
The thing that I'm the most satisfied about is that ultimately we have something here involving WUJING to talk about at the end of this. Because like for the majority of this episode, I was enjoying the ride, but I was just sort of like, okay, let's have something matter here, especially because, I said this in the preview. I either needed cameos or I needed something to really further along WUJING. And like when we're getting to the point where like Tadashi is being brought in, I was just starting to be like, you guys couldn't just like give Amir Arison just like a phone call and have him like, he could do it on stage, even in his costume from the Kite Runner, and just be like, I'm doing a Broadway play right now. I Ramos to buy are trying. Right. I just wanted, I wanted something more to honor the show's legacy in that sort of way. But the fact that they did further along WUJING's storyline, at least they gave us something more to discuss in terms of like, what is Robert Vesco going to do? Like, that in itself is pretty interesting because it suggests that, you know, even if we're not seeing WUJING on screen, really, we still know that, you know, his wheels are turning.
Absolutely. And I really felt like I got a lot out of this episode because my tinfoil hat theory, and I could be reading way too much into this, and this isn't any kind of Reddington long play. I mean, look at everything that happened with the Skinner. I thought that was some sort of a long play, and I took a huge L on that. That went absolutely nowhere. So, you know, it's possible that this could be that too, or, you know, it could be like my Marvin win.
I
That's right. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, I feel it's more akin to the Marvin one because here's my tinfoil hat theory about the Skinner sort of situation.
Oh my goodness.
It was right after John Bokenkamp left. I think they were still trying to figure out what they wanted to do with the show, what they wanted it to be, and then they sort of look back at the stuff with the Skinner and they're just like, okay, this doesn't really work. It's sort of like the dog that we saw early on in the show that just sort of like vanished at some point. It's like nobody ever mentions or talks about the dog anymore. It just really, there's some things that don't work in shows when you develop them, but I think things are a little bit more solidified now. I'm sure there is a little bit of a bigger plan that has been put into works. Here is my biggest problem with Robert. And I say this, you know, I think Stacy Keach, great actor. He's a great that guy. He's been in like a million things.
He has.
But like I wish they introduced this character earlier in like the series run than they did, because we've only really known him for like a few years, and he is supposedly the guy who taught Reddington everything. And it's just sort of like, if we met him in like season 2, season 3, I think this would be a much more impactful episode for me, and it would encompass a lot more of what the show actually is.
I would have loved to have seen more Vesco. The back and forth between Vesco and Reddington, it's incredible every time. These two actors on screen are just wonderful together. So I wasn't as sort of not disappointed as you, but like I just loved this episode. Is it a 200th milestone episode that we normally expect, where it's packed with cameos and, you know, nostalgia and whatever? Not exactly, but I mean, Vesco is somebody who's important to the show and is important to Reddington, and I think is going to be a big player in helping figure out more of the inside of what is going on with WUJING and what is the actual plan, because Reddington's sitting on the other side of it. It's kind of like, does he want to kill me? Does he want to expose me? Does he want to humiliate me? Like, what is the plan here? Like, what's the gamble? Let me know. Like, and he can't figure it out unless he has somebody that he trusts, that he knows, that's going to hopefully make the right decision and get the information and bring it back to Reddington.
You know who would have been great in this episode, now that I'm really thinking about it? Madeline Pratt. Like, this is a heist episode. She's a thief.
Yeah, but you never know with her. That's the thing. She's would be amazing in anything, but you really taking a gamble with Matt.
Gambles.
Yeah, no, I think that's a more like the house is going to win at that point.
Well, here is my other favorite part of this episode, and this is just like, if we're going for just laughs, the idea of like Reddington making food in Cooper's place, and then Cooper showing up and just being like, why are you in my house?
Should I just set up a cot for you?
Yeah, I think
clearly Reddington just feels displaced, and coming back there where, you know, he's friends with Harold, Agnes is there. It is a home, and it feels, I think Reddington's starting to feel like this is his home. This is like a home base. This is where his heart is, because that's where Agnes is, and friendship is there.
Here's the last thing I will complain about, because I did really like this episode. I'm not trying to be
too... complaining for an episode that was so good.
It was good, but it's just like, for an episode this big, for a milestone, I'm greedy. I have demand. No, this is it. And I say this as somebody who has hated on Wrestler a lot over the course of this show, but it is like, there's not a lot of original cast members left at this point, like people who were there in the pilot, who have been a series regular the whole way through. I think Donald got done dirty in this episode a little bit, where it's like Cooper, another original character, he had some fun stuff. Reddington obviously had a million fun things to do. Wrestler, can we sit here and say like 2 interesting things that Wrestler had in this episode?
No, I agree with that. It is the 200th episode. He is an original cast member. They should have given him not necessarily a personal storyline, but some memorable dialogue that we would be on here being like, oh man, when Wrestler said whatever, that was really funny. The only thing that stuck with me is what Wrestler said at the beginning, where he's kind of like, why is Reddington bringing us this case with these triplets and this money? What, like, WUJING has a list of a whole bunch of people that are coming after him. Like, why is he diverting us with this case? How is this connected to anything that's going on with WUJING? How are we actually helping Reddington? And it's actually because of what Wrestler said that I ended up where I was, deep in these sort of theories of like, well, this has to be what it is.
The funniest thing to me about this episode, you compare this to like the pilot, which feels like it cost like $40 million in comparison. It's like the pilot episode, action sequence, explosions, highway drama, 200th episode drama, Reddington stealthily taking the little dog into the other room. It was, I still enjoyed it. I'm not saying it was wrong. It's just sort of weird comparing it.
I really like this episode. You guys let us know in the comments, you know, what did you think? Do you think that this was a 200th episode where there was enough weight in it? Or are you just like, you know what? I loved it.
All right. Well, yeah, let us know. Share this video around. Thanks for hanging out with us. We still got a lot to come throughout season 10, and we hope to see you here next time.